As the original trio are once again reunited, they find themselves facing down their boss in a fatal duel, spurred on by the manipulative little gnome with the most to gain from the conflict. But as Derice attempts to crush the little instigator, Zook seizes his chance, flashbanging the Sharkin and escaping with items powerful enough to let him start his plans of world domination. Having planned ahead, Derice encourages Dane and Adar to be a literal pain in the neck, and to expect consequences soon after. Sure enough, as soon as the deed is done, the three OGs suddenly find themselves hit with the most literal kind of deja vu. Back in the Familiar Faces Tavern, the party recognizes the sound of death as he starts kicking down the front door. Suddenly reunited with a common desire to not be killed by a giant shark man they just betrayed, they all flee out the back window of the tavern. The last thing Dane was expecting as he fell into a dodgy back alley was coming face to face with a beautiful blonde human woman. She appears nearly as surprised as him, but after a moment's pause, she warns them all of the danger behind these tooth-takers and quickly leads them a few blocks away to safety. Grateful for the woman's help, the party learns she is named Kate. They then also learn that if they want to escape Dale without being caught by gate guards on the tooth-takers' payroll, they should get to the North Gate past the upper district of the city. Worried that Kate may be punished by the tooth-takers for helping them, they invite her to join the party in their escape. After a second to think about it, she can't help but agree. So as a slightly larger party is just passing the Presidium, Big Blue Dragon Derice once again slams into the building as he continues his speedrun to eat the president. The streets quickly erupt into chaos as tooth-takers and centaur guards hash it out. Having to cut through a burning building during their escape, Dane spots and saves a small crying Kinku child with no sign of a family. Finally outside the reach of Derice for now, everyone collapses in the Delian woods outside the city for the night. Morning kickstarts many days of travel as they head south through the woods, aimlessly trying to get away from Dale without a map, until they stumble upon the famous party village known as Hudali. Their fitting introduction to this place comes in the form of Wilson the Satyr and his array of substances within a single bag that he ends up giving to Dane. As they venture downhill to the large party raving area that's depressingly quiet during the day, they take a seat at the outside bar, next to the only other patrons enjoying a drink together. They are an odd pair, made up of a hulking Goliath with magical armor, and a twig-thin black tabaxi dressed only in the latest fashion of bushwear. Learning their names are Golkak, the Rune Knight Goliath, and Saikatsu Shi, the tabaxi druid, the party asks them how such an unlikely pair ended up travelling together. Golkak recently left behind the Ironwell Goliath clan atop the mountains overlooking Green Tully village, wanting more freedom to experiment with his so-called runestone magic that he has been inventing. Meanwhile, She has been travelling alone for much longer, after spending most of his life living in the woods with his mentor, an elf named Mirren, who a few months ago disappeared without a trace during the night. She stumbled upon the lost and confused Goliath, who wasn't quite as adapted to the untamed woods of Wolen, and so the quiet yet friendly Tabaxi offered him aid in helping him find the closest civilization. Now that the chance to take the load off has finally presented itself, the party figures it can't hurt to have a couple drinks with the new duo. In a momentary lapse of judgment, Dane hands Kane the kobold the bag full of 100 different drugs, and the kobold immediately swallows a lot. The poor little kobold's death was mercifully quick, and Dane consoles himself by drinking to forget. Thankfully, he still has a little kinku to fill the void. Dane tries one of the magically infused drinks served in Hudali that allows him to become mentally numbed for a few hours. Zook takes advantage of this immediately, convincing the forgetful dwarf that they are the best of friends who would do anything for each other. Kate decides to keep Zook away from poor Dane by inviting him to dance together to the bard's music. Meanwhile, Zook starts snooping around the deserted housing nearby, while Nadar joins she and Golkak to venture up to the nicer kept houses overlooking the party animals below. After an accidental misjudgment of his own strength when trying to open a heavy door, Golkak knocks the door off the hinges of the first house they come to. They profusely apologize to the old chicken farmer, before learning that some in this village, himself included, detest the new party culture of the youths these recent years. Curiously, however, he also mutters a few insults about some woman named Valentine, who seems to be behind it all, and the party decides to learn who she is. After Golkak kindly rebuilds the man's door with his natural skill at carpentry, blacksmithing, and the like, they all return to find the others in the village. They discover that Dane and Kate have been flirting all the way into the evening, and now that the sun sets, Zook rejoins them too, before they all see Valentine herself being cheered on by the masses as she takes the stage. Wilson the satyr is the lucky one to be chosen from the crowd to join her, and the party cheers with everyone else as he is kissed by the beautiful woman. The party's applause is cut short, however, as they watch Wilson's body fall lifeless from the kiss, while the rest of the crowd cheers, with no notice of it whatsoever. Valentine invites them all to join her in the volcano's cave nearby, but the party keeps their distance from whatever creepy magic is going on here, and trail behind to put a stop to this witchcraft. Deciding it might be best to leave Kate with the little Kinku outside, they try to communicate with the little guy to stay here. However, the party realizes it's going to be rather difficult to communicate with a creature that lacks the ability to speak its own words, forced to rely on repeating whatever it's already heard before. On top of that, with this little guy being a young child, they can't even get a name out of him. Thus, they decide to name him Squilliam, mostly for comedic purposes. Knowing they will absolutely take advantage of their new little organic soundboard later, they leave Kate to protect him as they venture into the volcanic cave. Their blood runs cold, as they only make it a few steps in, before Dane steps on a human skull. Then, looking ahead, they discover it only gets worse, as they see a small ocean of skeletons spilling across the cave. There, Valentine dances amongst the middle of them, surrounded by her smitten followers, no doubt soon to join the pile, unless the party can stop this. Valentine notices her new unwelcome guest, and reveals her true form. Unsurprisingly, a succubus. The party and their new friends, missing their strength before Doris stripped it away, do their best to fight against the succubus and her raised skeletons. Valentine attempts to charm a few of them, but ultimately fails to make such progress, the party evidently being good Christians that would rather wait for marriage. When things start to look bad during the fight, she comes in clutch with his healing magic, to keep the others on their feet. However, Valentine manages to avoid a killing blow from Dane, as she looks into his mind, and takes on the form of Kate. Thankfully, she yet again comes in clutch, casting his powerful Moonbeam spell to strike down the succubus, as the Moonbeam forces a shape-changer to revert to their original form as it burns them. What small victory they have is quickly snuffed short, as the dying Valentine calls to the Gravelord that she serves with her dying breath. Then, the party watches as the confused partygoers, still snapping out of their trance, find the entire army of skeletons in the volcano raising around them. As the party shouts for them to run, they are the first to turn and flee ahead of the crowd, as the undead army sinks their teeth into the stragglers of the fleeing crowd. Thankfully, with the head start they had, the party soon find themselves fleeing deep into the woods ahead, further hidden by night's darkness. When they are confident they are too far away to be found by skeletons, unsure of the fate the rest of the Hudali population suffered, they have little choice but to set up their camp and rest. As they are settling down around the campfire, she and Golgak take an interest in learning more about the party themselves, since they already shared their stories. All of a sudden, the party realizes this would be the first time they actually get to know about each other as well. Nadar goes first, mentioning how he never actually met his father, only knowing that he was a bard that tried to seduce his dragon mother, and died during the act. But Nadar was one of a very small few that are born dragonborn when coming from one dragon parent and one of a humanoid race. In most cases, he would simply have been born the same race as his humanoid parent. Then it's Dane's turn, yet the dwarf seems unwilling to go into more detail than the simple fact his father and 2 older brothers were pretty awful. When pushed for more information, Dane reluctantly tells them that he had a little brother and that his father had named him Dirt, after he was born with a few birth defects and killed his mother during the birth. Dane always hated the way his family treated him and his little brother. Refusing to call him Dirt like everyone else, he called his brother Deegan instead, always having a soft spot for the little guys. But when Golgak points out that he once heard the dwarven royal family of Goldstone also lost their queen during birth over a decade ago now, everyone looks in shock towards Dane. The dwarf quickly denies the idea of being a runaway dwarven prince, because that would be crazy, right? Getting late, she makes a short walk away from the campfire to quietly pray to his goddess Valicia, who the party have never heard of before. While he's gone, Golgak also asks Zook for some stories of his childhood. But before the gnome can no doubt traumatize him with his stories, they notice something. The forest around them begins to freeze. Leaves of trees, the blades of grass, suddenly being enveloped in sheets of ice. Then suddenly, they find a member of the Frostwalkers standing before them. The elite bounty hunters, often sent to take care of targets with a high enough bounty to be worth their while. They specialize in ice spells to capture their bounties alive and collect a higher price in most cases. As the elite warrior of the selective group speaks Zook's name and announces his bounty, all heads turn to look at the gnome. But when Zook looks to the rest of them for help, he finds his actions have led to his downfall, and nobody steps forth to help him. She returns just in time to watch the frozen Zook being taken away, and it seems the mood has officially been killed for the evening. By morning, she and Golgak agree they may as well venture with what remains of the party, and return to the city of Bristol, where it all began. But just when it seemed like their luck could not get any worse, they suddenly noticed a massive dragon silhouette flying overhead. It suddenly occurs to them that after going back in time, the red dragon that Dane killed back when they were much stronger is still alive now. And now, the dragon flying overhead is diving right towards them.